Nick Fuentes has never been in a relationship, never had sex, never experienced basic human intimacy that most of us take for granted. And from this position of absolute inexperience, he has decided to lecture the world on how women should live, what rights we deserve, and how society should be structured. Let me explain why this matters more than you think. And look, Nick Fuentes has influence. He has followers. He has kids listening to him. But so can I. If you help, I'm Lauren Paritra. Hit subscribe, because the only way to counter these voices like his is to make sure better voices get heard, and they get heard louder. So let me start with the obvious. And look, I'm going to tell you exactly why Nick Fuentes is actually terrified of women. Not just why he hates them, but why he fears us. Because once you understand that fear, the whole sad performance makes a lot more sense. And first things first, this is a person who questions whether the Holocaust happened. The Holocaust, an event that's more documented so thoroughly than probably any other occurrence in human history. We have footage, we have testimonies, we have literal mountains of evidence, including German records, because this is important. And the Nazis were very organized and they kept receipts. But Nick is here sitting, streaming in his setup in his parents' basement in 2025, deciding that maybe history books look a little different and this one's wrong. Like, it's like standing in the rain and being like, oh, I'm not wet.
I want to talk a little bit about Hitler, because he got really hung up on Hitler. And he asked me, do I affirm the Holocaust? Do I think Hitler is cool? And he got all bent out of shape. He said, I don't think Hitler is really cool. I think he's really a monster, and he's the worst mass murderer, and this, that, and the other. And, you know, he asked me, what is it about Hitler that's cool? And I said, well, the edits, these video edits of Hitler set to music. They show the parades, the military, the speeches, the charisma. And that's just true. That's why I think it's cool.
Thing about Nick is that he wants so desperately to be taken seriously as a political thinker. He styles himself as some kind of intellectual. The guy who discovered fascism in his sophomore year and decided to make it his whole ass personality. He wants to be William F. Buckley, but comes across more like a racist Kermit the Frog. This white nationalist stuff is almost boring in how predictable it is with him. White ethno-state, Democratic replacement, the usual greatest hits from people who never peaked at all. What fascinates me is how he wraps all this up in Christianity and traditional values, as if Jesus Christ himself was really concerned about preserving European bloodlines. Pretty sure the Middle Eastern Jewish guy from 2000-something years ago had other priorities. His version of Christianity is the version you get when you pick and choose which parts about loving your neighbor actually count, which is always convenient. Then there are his thoughts on women. And boy, does Nick Fuentes have thoughts on women. He thinks women should not vote in 2025. The man who looked at the last 100 years of human progress and went, you know what? Hard pass. He wants women back in the kitchen, barefoot and pregnant, presumably. You know what Stephen Little Bitch Miller and Nick Fuentes have in common? The last breast they saw belonged to the woman who birthed them.
But are you actually attracted to women?
I am attracted to women.
You're not gay?
No. But I will say that women are very difficult to be around.
Okay.
So there's that.
And do you think they should have the right to vote?
I do not. No, absolutely not.
They should stay at home?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
See, basically, you're just a misogynist old dinosaur, aren't you? For a young guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm the boomer. I know I'm the boomer here, but actually, you're a 27-year-old dinosaur, aren't you? Aren't you, Nick Fuentes? All women.
I am.
All women are annoying. All women grow old. They all get fat. Says the guy. Have you ever had sex?
No, absolutely not.
Wow. Says the guy who's never got laid.
Piers Morgan asked Nick if he's ever had sex with a woman, and he says no. The man lecturing all of you about traditional gender roles and what women should be doing has never actually been with a woman. You don't say. A lot of big opinions on women for a little guy who's never even seen one naked. Funny how the men most insistent that women belong in the kitchen have never actually been welcomed into one by a woman of her own free will. He attended the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. You remember that one in Charlottesville where somebody died, where people marched with tiki torches chanting Nazi slogans, and afterwards even other racists were like, man, maybe we went a little too far with this one, but not Nick. Nick was there, and Nick somehow managed to build a whole brand around it afterwards. The resilience of the mediocre white men. Like I said, truly knows no bounds. The America First thing kills me. He calls this his movement, America First, like he is some kind of patriot. But his version of America is one where the vast majority of current Americans would not be allowed to exist. Nationalism for people who failed basic geography. And he got banned from literally everything. Twitter, YouTube, every major platform looked at Nick Fuentes and his moppy ass hair and went, yeah, no thanks, gone. Which is actually quite hard to do these days. These companies let almost anything slide for a buck. You could say almost anything because they're so desperate for engagement and indoctrination. But Nick managed to be so consistently vile that even the algorithm was like, this is not worth it. This is not worth the ad revenue. You just see yourself out, which is such a special type of achievement. What really gets me is that he is young. He's not some relic from a different era who never like updated his worldview. He chooses this. In this age of information, access to the internet, with the entirety of human knowledge available at his crusty old fingertips, he looked around and decided that 1930s Germany had the right idea. That takes effort. That takes commitment to being wrong. He recently made comments about celebrating violence against women that were so foul, even though their misogynists were uncomfortable. When you are too extreme for the manosphere, you've really accomplished something, like being too drunk for an Irish pub.
Do you think your views on women might change if you actually ever had a relationship with one or had sex and actually had a proper relationship? I mean, people say the reason you're so angry about women is you're basically an incel.
Well, I'm not angry about it.
You sound very angry. You sound very, very angry about women.
When you look at the state of modern women, all they do is lay in their bed, doom scroll, they're chilling out. They're getting they're getting a little fat.
Piers Morgan may have actually kind of gained points with me on this one, dare I say. The dry British delivery of, so you're basically an incel, was iconic. And Nick's response, blaming women for being fat and scrolling their phones, from a guy, again, who spends 14 hours a day online ranting into a webcam in his parents' basement. The self-awareness is just not self-awaring. The only time this man has gotten close to a woman is when his mom brings him dinner downstairs into the dungeon while he's streaming his little show. And yet here we are talking about him, which is exactly what he wants, because ultimately Nick Fuentes is a man whose greatest accomplishment is making people angry on the internet. That's the only attention he's ever going to get. No one's clocking him in a room. The worst part is that he influences young people. But fortunately, so do I, on a smaller scale for now. And look, guys like Nick Fuentes are terrified of women because equality exposes them. For most of history, mediocre men were guaranteed a wife and respect just for existing as a man. Now women have options. We can say, absolutely fucking not. We have standards. We can buy our own homes. We can make comparisons. For somebody who brings literally nothing to the table except for his gender, he can't compete. He can't compete on personality, on humor, intelligence, decency, definitely not on physical appearance. So he needs a system where women don't get to choose. It's easier to build an ideology around controlling women than to confront the reality that he's been rejected because he's genuinely unlikable. The fear isn't about women at all. It's about his inadequacy and that this crushing realization that when women have freedom, they don't choose him. 0% of the time are we choosing Nick Fuentes. So he wraps that up and his personal failures into politics and calls it like, hey, this is traditionalism. This is my movement. What it actually is a very public, very pathetic tantrum about not getting laid, never seeing a titty. And if you think more people need to understand why guys like this are a problem, hit subscribe. Share this video with your friends. Post it on Facebook. The algorithm loves the little rage bait. So let's at least make sure it's good rage bait and that we boost this. And let everyone know that Nick Fuentes is dying alone. Goodbye.